All right, everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Sales Cheat Code Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Hallisey. You probably already know that, and if you didn't, I would recommend going to the show notes because that will be in there. Now, today we're going to talk about an attraction cheat code that is so widespread, and it is being used so often by the media right now that it's not even funny. Like I have a professional background. I have a degree in advertising communications. And really, if we're going to be fair about it, we'll just say propaganda, because that's really all that we learned in advertising is how to use propaganda to get people to do what we want. Sell products, to adopt our mindset, to agree to our philosophy on things. And I will tell you this, whatever side of the aisle you're on, we're going to have fun today because with Donald Trump in the White House, boy, this is the epitome. Every media outlet out there is using an attraction cheat code that we're going to talk about today. And the attraction cheat code, and I will tell you now, unlike the curiosity episode last week, is called controversy. And nothing drives ratings more than controversy. I was actually talking to somebody this morning, and I was explaining to them, why the media is like that. I'm like, think about it. If you're a news director and you're doing a rundown, which in the media is basically like if you have a show, let's say it's an hour-long show, you have certain segments within the show, and they're going over it. And you have a choice between, and we're in the age of COVID, so we'll talk about that. If you have a choice between saying, oh my gosh, the number of confirmed cases is up 70% in the last month versus, nobody died in San Diego County today, I can tell you right now, the better news, what you want to hear, is that nobody died. I mean, that's great news. But that will never run, ever. There's no news outlet that's ever going to run with that at all. And I'll throw a shout out. There's one, and it's outkick.com, which is kind of a sports commentary, but they do a lot of stuff on COVID now. And so, with that being said, they live and die on controversy. Like, you have to do controversy. Even before COVID, it's like if you watch any news show, especially local news, it's going to start out with murders and fires and assaults and burning boats, and it could be whatever it is, or a hepatitis outbreak. It's going to be terrible news. Like, whatever happens in the first 6 minutes of a news broadcast is terrible. Like, if I ever lived in a neighborhood where the first 6 minutes of a news broadcast was relevant and kind of represented my neighborhood well, I would move immediately. Like, you really need to move immediately. And so that's kind of how things happen. And so with Donald Trump in the White House, whether you like him or not, and I'm not giving you one bit of a hint on where I'm to stand on that, is it's controversy. Like, the battle lines are drawn, and they're not drawn in pencil. They're drawn in like paint. I would even say they're like carving out foxholes. Like, it's controversy. And so I was telling somebody literally this morning, I was like, if you ever want to get a sense on kind of how the media handles controversy and kind of, what they do ideologically, just carve out 30 minutes, you can do an hour or whatever, 30 minutes of Fox News, and you could do 30 minutes of CNN. And you'd think they're covering different planets or different years. You'd think they're not at the same time. Maybe somebody put a recording in from 10 years ago and one of them played it, right? You'd think it's something different, but they're not. But they bake on controversy. I've never even used that term before, bake on. Hey, maybe that'll catch on. But they live on controversy. They want it. So especially when you go to the opinion side of those networks, they really, really live on it. So, if somebody, like, let's say if you're a Trump supporter or a Republican and AOC says something really stupid, or Joe Biden says something just, advertising is dementia, then it's going to be all over the news. I mean, that's all they're going to talk about is, AOC is a bumbling Marxist and Joe Biden is basically a corpse walking around waiting for a VP. So, I mean, it will be something like that, right? And on the other side, Trump, I mean, he just says whatever's on his mind. It's completely unscripted. There's no way that anybody's writing what he says at all. It's completely off the cuff. And so whatever he says, they're going to take it completely to the other side and be like, this guy's crazy. He's boom, 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 any million things. But the idea is that you're building off this sense of controversy, which really, in a sense, is built off of a foundation of outrage. And so we look at today, and there's such outrage, especially if you go to social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, I don't know about TikTok. I've never been on it. But let's just say Facebook and Twitter, because those are kind of the two big offenders, right? It lives on controversy. In fact, their algorithms are based on that. Is they basically are designed to reinforce and feed you information. And I don't think in the beginning it was nefarious, but in the beginning it was, we want to feed you information that we know you want. And the basis of it was that they want eyeballs on the website. And one of the main metrics they look at, even as public companies, is they do average active monthly users. And they look at how long you're on it per session, how many sessions per day, how much time do you spend on on whatever, and they want to get that number up as possible. And I always knew it was there. And then I remember one time I was off Facebook a little bit, and they kept sending me emails or specifically push notifications on my phone saying, hey, did you see what your friend posted on Facebook? And I'm like, no, I'm not. That's not enough. You're not getting me on that. And then it's like, oh, did you see what your friend said in reaction to your other friend on Facebook? And I remember looking at it like very forensically, and I'm thinking, you know what it's like? It's like I used to date this one girl, and I broke up with her, and she would try any excuse possible to see me. I mean, anything. I mean, it got to a point where she literally went to Texas. And my favorite baseball player of all time is Nolan Ryan, right? She went to Texas and got Nolan Ryan's autograph on a baseball. This is no joke. And came back and said, hey, I got Nolan Ryan's autograph on this baseball. And we were going to be going to Texas, and I broke up with her, and she went anyway and got Nolan Ryan's autograph on a baseball, and literally basically met me with Nolan Ryan's autograph to try to get me, have an occasion to try to convince me to stay dating her. Now, good news is I have that baseball. It's upstairs. But it's this controversy. Like, in a sense, it's like that's what Facebook does. They want to create an echo chamber. They want to get your eyeballs on there. And what happened is they started feeding people so much information that they were only giving people information on what they believed in, and they created this echo chamber. Well, the problem is their analysis, the people who were analyzing all the data realized it, and they said, well, if we want to create more eyeballs on it, and this was right around the time they went public, then we need to really ramp it up a little bit. And so, if you have a certain ideology, you're only going to see things in your feed that really match your ideology, because you're more likely to click on it or watch it or comment it and stay on the site. If you're a Republican and they throw a bunch of Marxist stuff on there, you're probably not going to be on there that long, right? On the other side, if you're a liberal, then they throw a whole bunch of, Daily Caller or Daily Wire stuff on there, you're probably not going to be on there either. And so the idea is that when that happens, there's a tendency where there's a controversy built where they're only going to give you the most extreme stuff out there, like Nancy Pelosi wants to bankrupt your family, or Donald Trump is never going to leave the White House if he doesn't win. It'll be some tremendous controversy on there because it turns into clickbait. And they're going to do that on purpose to get you to click on it. And that is an attraction cheat code that is extremely powerful. Now, it's like C4 or dynamite. It's a very powerful tool, but in the wrong hands, it can be destructive. It can blow arms off, right? So you want to be careful on how you do it. So you don't want to be sitting here setting up your business model to be some, what do they call it? Doom porn or doom scrolling or whatever it is, that, people start to associate you and your business with negativity. You definitely don't want to do that. But you do want to establish controversy. And one of my favorite ways to do that is to establish a straw man. You establish a guy who is the villain, is somebody who's doing things the wrong way. And so when we talk about storytelling, we've talked a lot about this. We'll talk about success stories and a hero's journey, but we'll also talk about failure stories, people who just really made like cautionary tales, people who have made stupid decisions. And so the idea is you want to take a controversial topic and take a very, very, very strong opinion on it. Because one, people respect people with defined opinions. Whether they like them or not, that's a different story, because it could be partisan, right? But if you take a really strong opinion on something, then people are going to, it establishes a sense of controversy because you're starting a controversy. And a good example of this, there's an investment firm called Fisher Investments. And all their advertising, and again, I have an advertising background, so I'm looking at it from a forensic side, but all their advertising, basically it demonizes mutual funds. And it says, look, if you're invested in a mutual fund, you're losing money. And it's stupid. You don't need to do it anymore. That's the way they did it 50 years ago. And they're getting paid hand over fist to manage a mutual fund that you may or may not make any money on. And he says here, and they said at our firm, we don't sell mutual funds, which is crazy because every investment firm in the world, that's the one thing they usually sell a ton of. And they focus on because they're easy, it's fast food, you don't have to think too much about it, and it doesn't force their advisors to actually be competent in understanding the fundamentals of the companies that people are investing in. You just take the combo package and sell it to people, and you make a lot of money, and hopefully they do, they may or may not, and life is easy. So it's kind of a dumbed down way of looking at it. And so this Fisher investment company says, well, we don't do that. No, we do things differently. And so it creates a sense of controversy. So you're going to go to their website, or you're going to call them up or engage with them on social media. But this sense of this controversy that exists, that didn't exist 5 seconds before you ran into their content, is there, and it keeps people massively involved. So in essence, what you're doing is you're starting a fight, but you're not one of the combatants. So it's like you go to this one guy over here and you go, this guy said you're a jerk. Well, I'm not going to say the curse word because I don't curse, but this guy says you're a blankety blank. And then you go, this guy says your girlfriend's ugly. And what's going to happen? And then you back up and you get them fighting. And that literally what happens is, you get people that didn't have a stake in the matter ahead of time, and you get them fighting about something. And you're not one of the combatants, but what you're doing is you're really, you're bilking it. And even back in the Great Recession, they did the same thing. So you would have people that were selling, and I'm not going to get super technical here, but you had people that were selling mortgage bonds. And if you ever watch the movie The Big Short, they go over this really, really, really well, better than anybody else can explain it, I think. Better than me, I'm sure. And they said, okay, they're going to package all these mortgages together and sell them bonds on the market. And they're going to say, hey, these things are great. You're going to sell them and you're going to make money. And that's what everybody else was doing. And then they realized, oh, man, these things are screwed up. And so they ended up creating out of nowhere. I mean, it didn't even exist. They created a derivative product called a credit default swap on a mortgage bond. And they said, hey, I've sold a bunch of these mortgage bonds to these people over here. Then I just found out that they're all toxic and they're all going to go under. What? Yeah, and I have this insurance product here that when it goes under, you're going to make like 30 times your investment. And The Big Short talks about it. It was so good and so like a no-brainer that some people were like, no, we're not going to do that. That's so stupid. Nobody makes money like that. It's not that easy. And then you have the banks, on the other hand, that are like, this guy's an idiot. If he's going to pay us premiums to create an insurance product on something that's never going to happen, we'll take your money. And then what happened is word got around Wall Street that these people were selling these things. And the other banks that said, well, we're not going to create a product for you. They're like, well, listen, these other banks who are our competitors are selling these products. And, well, we're going to get left behind. So they end up creating a product that all their analysts said don't touch. And which was the smart move in the end. And they said, well, fear of being left behind, they end up creating them. So there's this big controversy that gets set up because you start a rhetorical fight. So how do you do that in the age of COVID? Well, first of all, I could say one word to you, and that'll immediately give you a sense on where things are at. I could just say hydroxychloroquine. That's all you need to know. And so if President Trump didn't say, I love hydroxychloroquine, nobody cares. This thing has been on the market for 65 years. It's one of the safest drugs. It's safer than aspirin, clinically speaking. But because Trump liked it, all of a sudden it's terrible. And there's doctors that literally want to prescribe it. And they say to their patients, this is like common knowledge. And they say, well, I don't know about your political persuasion, but, and it's like, how does that even show up in a medical, like a doctor's office? But it does, or Zoom nowadays. But the idea is that if you start a controversy on something, you can steer the controversy the way you want it to go. And if you create a boogeyman or cautionary tale or somebody that made a decision that runs contrary to what you think they could do, and again, you're using storytelling and you're painting the negative outcome that came, even though the person is a sympathetic character. You don't want to throw them under the bus. They're a great person, they're well-intentioned, but man, they made this one really bad decision, and it all started at this one point. And it's this point of controversy. People are immediately going to go with it because, one, they don't want to look stupid, and two, you're visualizing them, you're creating a visualization for them on what life is going to be like when it's even worse. And in the age of COVID, it's already bad, and there's level of uncertainty, and people are scared. So you really don't have to do much in the age of COVID, but you can talk about something that you're doing where you want to avoid. Like the worst thing you can do is this, and there's easy money to make. So even on this channel, I'm doing, day trading, which I never do, but it's like I always made money when the market crashes. I always make a ton of money in the stock market, and so it's like, the one thing I'm not touching retail at all, ever, period. But it's like, I'll walk you through exactly, this is the cautionary tale. Like, if you don't invest money now, like, you're going to look back in 5 years and just kick yourself, because all your friends and all these people are literally making the easiest money they can ever make because all the risk has been taken out. And so, you want to create that sense of the person who makes a really stupid decision and give them an opportunity not to be that person. And when you do that, people immediately will follow. But they're going to be attracted into that conversation by a sense of controversy. So really, in essence, you're picking out a really hot button issue and you're taking a stand on it. Doesn't mean it has to be politics. Please don't there's too much of that already. But you're taking a hot button issue, something that they're really scared about, taking a very well thought out, firmly believed stand on something, and you're walking them through the process of what not to do. And when you do that, I'm telling you, it's simple to get people to follow you. So with that being said, we're going to talk next week about yet another really cool attraction cheat code. And this one is one where we've kind of alluded to it a little bit today, actually. So we talked a little bit about it today, but we're going to go much greater in depth about it next week. It's an attraction cheat code that's designed to get people to act for the sake of acting, because there's a saying that people, There's a saying that people, it's not so much they want to win, but they just don't want to see their competition lose. So I'm going to show you exactly how to take advantage of that and to get people to follow you and act in a way that you want them to act. But we're going to cover that in next week's attraction cheat code. Again, we're using curiosity like we used before. So with that being said, I'll see you next week. To get more information on the sales cheat code, go ahead and click on the subscribe button below. Also, down below in the video description, down there, there's a link that takes you to our website that gives you additional content, some additional freebies that we have, and gives you information on some programs that we have that have been proven to help people to make sales easy so that you can make the kind of money you want, live the lifestyle that you've always wanted, and not have to struggle in the process. And what might be the coolest thing of all is you don't have to put much effort into it. It truly is a cheat code that most people don't know about. And it's a cheat code that can change your life today. So click on the link below and let me help you start to experience these results starting right now.